5 boys planned a trip into the mountains to catch frogs, but they never returned. It wasn't until 11 years later that their remains were discovered deep in the mountains by the police, and the killer remains at large to this day. Shockingly, this is a true story that was adapted into a movie. On that fateful day in 1991, after the 5 boys went missing, their frantic parents rushed to the police station to report the disappearance. However, since the boys had been gone for less than 24 hours, the police refused to open a case, missing the crucial window for a rescue operation. 4 long months passed without any trace of the 5 children, finally sparking intense public attention. Under mounting pressure from the media, the government mobilized tens of thousands of police officers and soldiers to conduct a thorough search of the forests. Millions of missing person flyers were distributed, and a reward of up to $40 million was offered. Despite these efforts, no leads were found. As the news coverage gradually faded, the missing children were slowly forgotten by the public. It wasn't until 4 years later that television producer Mike brought a breakthrough to the case. At the time, he had been exiled to a local village due to a scandal involving fabricated content in his show. Desperate to reclaim his former position, he set his sights on the disappearance of the 5 boys, hoping to create a sensational program around it. Mike pored over all the case files from that year. In previous interview footage, a professor specializing in criminal psychology had analyzed that the perpetrator must be someone the children knew well. Mike immediately sought out this professor for more valuable insights. During their conversation, the professor revealed that Henry's parents, one of the missing boys, were highly suspicious. The boys typically went out to play in the mornings and returned home in the evenings. However, on the day of the disappearance, Henry's mother had called the police at noon, claiming she had a premonition that something bad had happened to her son. Moreover, Henry's mother usually left the door unlocked, but on that particular day, she had strangely locked it, as if she knew her son would not be coming home. Even more bizarre, 2 months after the disappearance, Henry's mother received a phone call that appeared to be from Henry. Yet, she remained eerily calm, showing no urgency at all, a reaction completely uncharacteristic of a parent desperately searching for their child. Before hanging up, she remained silent for a full 17 seconds, never pressing the trace button on the phone to locate her son's whereabouts. These peculiar behaviors further convinced the professor that Henry's mother was harboring an unspeakable secret. With this suspicion in mind, the 2 men personally visited Henry's home. As expected, they discovered suspicious details: a half-used bag of cement hidden in one of the rooms, and a recently filled patch of ground in the yard, as if something had been buried. At that moment, Henry's grandmother suddenly approached them, making a strange gesture with a nervous and fearful expression. After completing the gesture, she pointed at Henry's father, seemingly implying that he was heavily implicated. This only strengthened the 2 men's deductions. The professor questioned Henry's father, "Why didn't you press the trace button that day?" Henry's father explained that he was too anxious at the time to activate the tracking feature. Although his answers seemed somewhat far-fetched, they admittedly lacked concrete evidence. Before leaving, the professor asked to use the restroom. Henry's father also hurriedly mentioned that his stomach was hurting and followed the professor to the adjacent stall, incessantly discussing Henry's disappearance as if trying to divert the professor's attention. As the professor emerged from the restroom and glanced back,